Ladies and gentlemen, according to Seeking Alpha, about 14 analysts give revenue and earnings predictions for SoFi stock every single quarter. Now, they do this not only for the forward quarters that we're looking at, but also for the entire forward years. So we're looking at 2024, 2025, and 2026. After that, most of the analysts fall off and do not make far out predictions. But for those 3 years, most of them want to see how SoFi and other companies do, and that's exactly how they price it out. Now, over the last 2 years, there's been some drastic changes to the way that SoFi has been priced for these years. And so I want to go through that with you to show how drastically off these analysts have been in past, and then also bring it with another company that we look at, Nubank, to show you what these sort of revisions can do to a stock price. So without further ado, let me go ahead and share you guys one of my screens here. I'm looking at Seeking Alpha here, which shows off SoFi for all of the predictions from 2024 down to 2026, where still 12 analysts are pricing it out. After that, only about two. So we don't want to look at that because then it's just going to be a couple of people's ideas. But what's great about Seeking Alpha is that they end up pricing these predictions out throughout all of history for SoFi stocks since they've been a public company. So they look at this for EPS and they look at this for revenue as well. So I ended up taking those numbers, plotting them out on a spreadsheet. And so then we can actually see quarter by quarter what they thought for full year of 2024, 2025, and 2026 for both EPS and revenue. Let's take a look here. First off, we're going to see a pretty drastic chart. Let me make myself just a little bit bigger here. You can see that EPS for SoFi at one point back in Q4 of 2022 was only about -1 cent. Okay. Whereas today, as of the most recent quarter, they have revised up full year 2024 by 5 cents. This is on average across all of Wall Street analysts covering the company to now 13 cents. This is why the stock price has seen quite a large increase, and we'll go through that as well. But over on the other side, I'm also pricing in Nubank. So let me just switch my thing over. You can see that Nubank has also went from EPS for 2024 of 15 cents all the way up to 40 cents. A massive increase. Now, I did also make a chart here to plot out the price targets over the last 2 years for both SoFi and Nubank. And what you'll actually know is that SoFi has had a price increase of about 141%, while Nubank has had just over double that at 285% increases. Let's find out why. So, if we look at SoFi's EPS, there's a massive increase for 2024, along with Nubank massive increases. And in fact, it's actually a more drastic change for SoFi just based on where we started to where we ended in a percentage basis. But why don't we go to 2025? So for 2025, what we can see here is that SoFi, if I move over here, uh, has really stayed for the most part stagnant. 26 cents at the beginning of Q4 of 2022 to now 28 cents. Now, a lot of estimates that are actually coming out in terms of retail analysts are actually pricing SoFi somewhere around 30 to 35 cents for full year of 2025. So they're actually getting closer to those targets that retail has had. But Nubank, on the other hand, has actually seen quite the increase from 40 cents and then actually at one point 29 cents all the way up to now 57 cents. So a much larger increase versus what SoFi is seeing from the trend over the last 2 years. But it gets even more drastic whenever we look at 2026 because SoFi has not really had any price changes in terms of EPS from 43 cents over to 47 cents, and Nubank has from 50 cents to 80 cents. What's funny is that SoFi has actually come out with their own guidance and said, hey, we are on like from a midpoint going to do 68 cents of EPS in 2026. Okay, 68 cents. No analyst is pricing that in. At the highest, they said 50, which is below SoFi's low target of guidance at 55 to 80 cents. Okay. So they are not even expecting SoFi to do what they expect to be their worst guidance, which they've never done, by the way. Every single time that SoFi has given guidance, they have triple beat it. a beat on revenue, a beat on earnings, and then they also have pushed guidance. And in fact, any metric that you want to look at, whether that's adjusted EBITDA or anything, has also been beaten during those times as well. So it's in my opinion that this is extremely foolish. And so it's still underpriced, in my opinion, from Wall Street's perspective, because they will have a lot more revisions to go between now, once we actually see 2025 guidance, and they continue to reiterate guidance, which is what they just did a few weeks ago. They said, hey, our 55 to 80 cent target, we are still thinking that that's going to come true. Wall Street is saying, hey, we don't think you're telling the truth at all. We'll see, because look at what they did previously whenever they tried to anticipate SoFi's EPS in 2024. Drastically off. I mean, the consensus amongst those 14 analysts was that they weren't even going to have a positive quarter in the a positive year in the full year of 2024. From going from negative to positive 13 is a massive difference. Hundreds of millions of dollars worth of earnings that have been locked in already. Now, I also took revenue, okay? These are both in the billions of dollars. And of course, Nubank is just going to be at a much higher or a much bigger size than SoFi. But one thing I really want to point out, which really shows the difference between SoFi and Nubank's price targets, is the revenue growth rates here. For 2024, revenue growth has not really been priced in. From 2.44 billion to 2.55 billion, it's kind of been in the same sort of area for the entire year, where Nubank has gone from 8.6 billion understood from Q4 of 2022 to 11.7 billion just at the most recent price predictions, and we haven't even seen Q3 guidance yet. That comes in the next 2 weeks or so. So that will also be very exciting to see. And then 2025, no different, right? SoFi sort of in the exact same place all throughout this entire 2-year period. Nubank, large increases. And then 2026, actually a decrease for SoFi. Well, Nubank has actually had quite the increase, almost a doubling from 10 billion to 19.56 billion. So it's a little bit of the mix of these two statistics, which you can see here. I got all the data for the price action on Yahoo Finance's historical data, and then Seeking Alpha's Wall Street earnings prediction or earnings revisions, which is how we got all these numbers to pull up these two spreadsheets. So very interesting. It's in my opinion that both SoFi and Nubank are undervalued because these revisions just end up getting, turned over and over and over again. And SoFi is in a very particular position because 2025, they have such terrible estimates for them. And yet, they're saying they're going into the best macro environment in 7 years. If you didn't see this coming in an environment which was supposed to be a transitional year, what are you going to suspect whenever they actually have a good year for the first time in 7 years? So I am super excited about both of these companies, but SoFi is definitely one that I'm going to keep an eye on because they are doing great things, and it's just not even being priced into the stock price, even though we've seen a run up in recent history. Thank you all so much for watching, but that's the end of the video.